Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
You are watching a Fact TV presentation of the Town of Rockingham Select Board Meeting.
Again, by the clock, let's call this meeting to order. We are located in the lower theater of Town Hall. There's a Zoom link on the agenda and a phone number to call in. So that being said, the first meeting item on the agenda is the meeting of the liquor commissioners. And thank God we only have one tonight instead of 15. So, the one that's applying is Fire Energy LLC, Route 103 for a second-class license. Take a motion to approve or deny.
I move that we approve the license for Fire Energy LLC.
Second.
Second it.
Any further discussion? Motion made and seconded to approve the liquor license or second-class license to Fire Energy LLC. Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor would say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. And it's coming around for signatures. Hey, continuing on, let's approve the minutes of April 18th, 2023. Make a motion.
Move to approve minutes of April 18th, 2023.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes of April 18th, 2023. Any further discussion, deletions, corrections, omissions, etc.? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor would say aye.
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 Passes. Additions to the agenda for routine administrative matters and or pressing matters that will require ratification at a future meeting. I have none, Scott.
No, I don't. I just would
Board?
request a brief executive session at the end of the meeting. There is an item we have to address.
I don't have a pen.
Board has no additions? Yep. All right, move right along to public comment on items not on the agenda. Very few public here, except for a group to my left. You're right. We know what they're here for. They're on the agenda. So next item we have is the manager's report.
So a couple items. So I'm sure if you haven't seen, you will be seeing shortly that there's been more EMS issues within the southern Vermont area now, more so on the other side of the river this time with Keene. So one of their private ambulance services is out of business, and now Rescue Link is going to be providing support. We have sent some information to our regional EMS committee about our current situation with our coverages, with our current contract and our over-reliance on our partners across the river in Walpole and the number of mutual aid calls that they've had to come over and address here, which has been growing every year. And so we have run data now from the fire department from Walpole and have sent that to our EMS committee. For some reason, Vermont is looking at these problems across the state, but they don't have information on border communities when a first responder comes from across the river. So they had no idea that we had, for example, already in the first 4 months, almost 5 months of this year, we've had over 45 calls across to Walpole for EMS coverages, just in Rockingham and Bellows Falls. So our problems are becoming more regional. We wanted the regional folks to step in and start to look at some solutions that might be regional-based solutions, because this issue is obviously larger than just one community or two communities can really start to address. So we'll keep you informed. At the moment, we still have ambulance services with Golden Cross, and we'll hopefully have some way to continue that. But as you can tell, we're having some real challenges here to maintain some staffing and service levels. So to be continued.
Is that something that we could work on?
I think the only solution can be regional. I don't see any other way to make it work. There just aren't that many providers, and you know, the problem is the business model is very challenging. The EMS providers that are in the business, because of the way reimbursements work and how much money they can actually collect, it just makes it difficult. And then they're running into the same staffing problems that everybody else is running into, trying to find people that are trained and qualified. So it's a real concern.
Question, Scott? Could the Rescue Inc., I noticed that they're hiring an additional 30 folks to cover Keene, bringing their head count up to 110 employees, which was amazing number. Would there be any chance that we might consider Rescue Inc., or are they too far away?
You talk to them. The problem is they don't have any other folks that are this far north. So they would have to, their business model wouldn't work unless we had other communities involved. So we would have to talk to Chester, we'd have to talk to Springfield, we would really have to talk to a host of folks, including Walpole, to really make this work. So that's the goal of trying to get the regional EMS folks involved and seeing is there some solution that we can sit down and look at regionally to see what we can do. So they're evaluating the data. They really haven't given me much in terms of, is there a meeting or a specific time or date when we can try to get into it in more detail. As soon as I find that out, I'll let everybody know.
One of the things that we're doing at the regional, myself and another woman on the executive board have been interviewing town managers all around the region. And we had a great conversation with Scott, and to find out how the regional could help communities combined in things like this. Could the regional get a big grant and be the one hiring people to provide some services and then bill it out to the towns, or just whatever, we're working on that. We have a meeting next week. So that's something we're definitely looking at the regional commission.
Got it.
Yeah,
Are we, I'm sorry, are we being billed by Walpole for every call, and is our budget within limits?
Well, they have just, much like Springfield has recently said, they're going to have to start billing for the balances, because in the past, what they would do is they would bill whatever the client was, and if they were not reimbursed, they were not coming back to charge the community. And Springfield, as of March, has told us that they can't continue to do that, so they're going to start to balance bill. And Walpole said because of the volume and the impact on their services, they're going to have to start to balance bill as well. So you will start to see some impacts on our budget.
There's two in the waiting room.
Yep. Oh, 2 new ones. Okay. Nothing yet though, Rick. We have not received any bills yet from outside parties yet. But
Thanks.
they put us both on, they put us on notice, and not in a nasty way, just in a, this is a problem for them. They're gonna have to come up with a way to try to keep their service afloat. So.
Okay.
Any other questions for the manager in regards to? Right, hearing none, let's move along on the agenda. And the first item is the group on my left, which is Sam Carlson for the Green Lantern Solar presentation on the Stickney property, who are also present. So that being said, there's a package information, and Mr. Carlson, if you step up to the table. Thank you. We'll let you have your spiel. Spiel time.
Good evening, Sam Carlson. I'm with Green Lantern Solar. We're based in Waterbury, primarily a Vermont-based solar company. We do a little bit of work in New Hampshire and Maine as well. We've done probably about 100 solar projects around the state of Vermont. I've been with Green Lantern since about 2015. The project that's before you now is a 500 kilowatt solar project, which would take up about 3 acres of land that is owned by the Stickney family. And as you said, the Stickneys are here this evening to answer any questions of the landowners. The land that the Stickneys sort of selected for the solar project is the least productive agricultural land on that parcel. Very rocky, very bony. Has some odd soils and odd drainage as well. So the productivity of the corn they grow there is not what it is in the rest of the parcel. You should have a sketch in front of you that shows that 3-acre array that would then be on the north and northeastern side, screened with vegetation. Vegetation would be 10 to 12 feet high. We don't want to shade the corn that the sticklebags will be growing north of the array. The vegetation would be what you see in front of you. There are several different varieties that are being proposed to provide that vegetative screening. Most of it is a flowering shrubbery, attract pollinators. That's going to attract birds and bees, some insects. You'll see, you may have seen an earlier sketch of the array where the access road was going to be running sort of in the middle of the field and actually go into Saxon's River Village. At the Stickney's request, we have moved that access road to the west side of the field, so it would be further away from the houses there on Pleasant Valley Road. And also at Stickney's request, we've proposed an underground interconnection, so there will be no power poles going across the cornfield, which they felt would be unsightly, and so we've agreed to do an underground connection. In your package of things, in additions to the sketch, you'll see sort of what we call a critical path or an indicative timeline of all the steps we have to go through to get this project reviewed and permitted. You are our last step at the local level. The next step would be going to the Wyndham Regional Planning Commission in early June. And if we get over that, then we go to the state. And that process would start in mid-June probably. And of course, this project would have to get reviewed by the Agency of Natural Resources, Vermont Department of Historic Preservation, the Vermont Department of Public Service, Public Utility Commission, et cetera, et cetera. That's probably a 6-month permitting process. If all goes well, we would receive the permit from the Public Utility Commission in maybe January of 2024. We'd wait until springtime, and in an ideal world from our standpoint, we would be building this project in April and May of next year. I think the key question for the select board at this time is whether you would consider this site a preferred site for solar development. That's a legal term that the Public Utility Commission has come up with. There are, for each town in a sense has criteria for what constitutes a preferred site. That criteria is included in the draft energy chapter of the town plan that the Planning Commission has been working on. And we would argue that this project aligns with that criteria. There's a minimal, or as far as we can tell, there are no real negative environmental impacts. The only real environmental impact would be our need to clear probably about 25 trees that are 40 feet tall and higher to the southeast of the array to prevent shading of the array during the morning hours. We would not need to clear any trees to the south of the array. It would just be in that little pocket of trees that sort of divides those two parcels of land. And those trees would be would work for the Stickneys to take those down in a very careful way. We wouldn't be bringing in a skidder, and this wouldn't be a capital intensive, brought down sort of by hand, and to avoid disturbance as much as we could. We're hoping that the select board will consider this project a preferred site. We think there are we've done all we can to minimize the aesthetic impacts, the environmental impacts. any loss of agricultural productivity by selecting less productive land. We would also, in our filing to the state, commit to not mowing between June 1 and August 1, which is the critical breeding time for the bobolink. So we would not be mowing during that time. So we want to work with the town as much as we can to make this a positive for the town. I'll conclude with the last two bits. We estimate payments to the town in the form of taxes, both on the solar facility and on the increased property tax that would come by taking the land out of current use and having it taxed at its highest and best use. The sort of combined effect of that would be just shy of $1,000 a year in additional taxes for the town. The Saxons River Village trustees voted in March to approve this site as a preferred site, and the Planning Commission on March 30th approved this site as a preferred site for solar development. So I will stop there and see if you have any questions or concerns that I could address.
Yeah, looking at this map here, if you look at where the sections of PG6, there's two houses there on the left-hand side of Corey Hill going up the road.
Yep.
It looks like they may overlook part of that. Is there screening? It doesn't look like there's screening except for the the trees that are there currently. I don't know.
Right. So it's
That's up the hill, that nice house especially is at the very top of the hill.
Yep.
Where it branches off, and I don't know if they're gonna be able to look down or if they've been contacted in regards to this.
Yes, so we did send them a letter in early March. It was before the Saxons River trustees meeting to let them know about this. In that sketch that you see where it says PG6, you'll see a little black line that then ties into 6 or 7 little green circles there. Those are white spruce that we would propose to plant in that one clear area to block the view. Otherwise, that tree line is fairly consistent. So we had landscape architects come down and look at that view from the neighbors, and they sort of said, we need to fill in that open spot with some spruce, so that'll be, year-round screening. We can't go with spruce out in the field, obviously, because they grow too big. We'll end up shading the array, and it would look kind of weird actually out in the cornfield to have that. So.
Any questions?
I've got a question.
Yeah. Well, I just thought I'd say, I used to be on the project review committee at the regional. And from my recollection, that you might have some argument, but this would be considered a preferred site. I expect that they will go along with that.
Question, Peter.
Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
How many off-takers have been signed up? Is there a minimum number of off-takers that have to be found before the project can proceed?
So it's off-takers, it's always a cart and a horse question. We can't really sign up off-takers until we have a permit. Because until we know we've got a project, they're not gonna sign a legal contract to purchase the net metering credits from the array. That said, we've had very good luck in working with towns and schools and ski areas around Vermont, and now increasingly some of the manufacturing companies that also have significant electricity bills, and we have not had a problem in finding off-takers. Obviously, from our perspective, we're interested in finding large off-takers, large consumers of electricity, because we want to minimize our administrative transaction costs of billing every month for the net metering credits that are being sold at a discount to the off-takers, so they save on their electricity bill. But we work with Sugarbush, we work with Smugs, we work with Mount Snow, we also work with probably 15 or 20 school districts and probably another 20 towns. around the state, anywhere in Green Mountain Power territory, we can sign up as an off-taker. But we do not have right now a list of off-takers because I don't have a CPG yet to go and market.
Right, as you know, the town of, we have a solar array going in by Novus Solar on Route 103 in the former town gravel pit. And Scott, you can tell me, we were missing one taker for the project to proceed, the last I heard. Can you bring us up to date on that?
He sent me an email today and said he thinks he has everything in alignment, so he's looking to start sometime probably over the summer, so,
Okay,
yeah.
thanks.
Anyone else?
Has the town energy committee looked at this? No?
Planning commission did, the energy committee,
No.
right,
Right, we had 2 meetings with the planning commission.
right.
I don't know, I have not made a presentation to the energy.
That would be the conservation committee, basically, they're one and the same.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, the planning commission thought it met the town plan, and I don't think it's a problem for us. They're the ones who
Right.
drafted it. They are.
I don't see an issue with it. That's all.
Yeah, no.
But didn't you have one?
I'll just mention on that, the planning commission, Guy Payne said Mike Gia wanted to, see, so he's part of the energy
Right.
commission. So yeah,
Okay,
Mike
good.
is
I
in
did look at it.
conversation.
Right,
I'm not sure if he toured.
they have not yet, I
He
actually
wanted to, so.
mistakenly went upstairs to the 3rd floor when I got here. And so I talked to Gary, because the Stickneys have actually been waiting to be contacted by Gary to arrange for a visit from anyone on the Conservation and Energy Commission that wants to go and see. I think their concern was really about the extent of tree clearing that was going to be required. And as I walked it just before coming here, there are probably about 25, max 30 trees, mainly old pines.
No sugar maple.
Not that I know of. You're not doing any sugar.
No, they wouldn't let you cut the maples,
No.
that's for sure. Not there.
I wouldn't either.
Okay, anything else, Rick?
No, nothing. That's fine.
Okay. All right, we have a consensus to have Scott, get a letter of, commitment to, agree that this is a preferred site and get it back to us. So do you know board to sign that?
It's just the chair.
Yeah, all right, guess that's me. So is that's fine, let's, we'll sign it, Scott, and you can give me a notice, I'll go and sign it.
Great.
We all set with that?
Yeah.
Okay, guess you're all set.
Great. Thank you very
Thanks
much.
for coming in, Sam.
Thank you, appreciate it. And Scott has my contact, so
Yeah.
if any folks in town have questions, please have them get in touch with me. Happy to meet with them, talk with them on the phone, do whatever. The more information is good, more questions are good, so. And Scott, Gary said that he had, you have a signed letter from the planning?
I do, which is in the package that this board.
Okay, great. Yeah, I haven't seen, so I was curious.
Yep.
Yeah, great.
All right, thanks.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks to Stickney Gang for coming in.
Yeah.
Nice to see them.
Thanks.
We've been picking stones there since the 1960s.
There is a big pile there.
I always think of
Yeah,
that place
that's-
on the way, I think it's the way to London, is it the London area where you just see this hill full of stones and you're like, God, they better put a solar panel up there.
So they're just missing us, Peter.
Oh, no, you're welcome to stay.
But yeah, you want to stay and listen to the boring stuff, sure.
Utility poles on 121 are next.
That's a problem. I got a problem with that.
We got Franklin on the Zoom, so we could chat. So.
Thanks again for your time.
All right,
Thank you, guys. Good night.
Thank you.
Drive safe.
Okay, let's move on to, third item on the agenda, which is a GMP application for Route 121 Phase 1 power line reconstruction project. On permit request, there is information in your packet.
Yep. I
The
got it.
representative is here on Zoom from Green Mountain, so.
Well, Franklin, yeah, he's a consultant. He's working on this project with Green Mountain Power. And I'll let him update you on some of the specifics. This is gonna be a multi-phase project because it's basically part of their storm hardening, that they're going to be improving this area for storm resistance. So it's part of a larger, multiple phase project. But this is the first piece of it. And with that, we do have Franklin Austin on the Zoom here. So Franklin, you want to jump in?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. This project originates in Westminster and it crosses the town line into Rockingham. This phase of the project is continuing up to the intersection of Barber Park Road. We're going to stop there because we have new construction beginning at Barber Park and continuing up past Ski Bowl. Thereafter, once this piece is permitted and we get the material ordered, we're going to leapfrog and we're going to continue up toward the village of Saxons River. We're going to design that out, permit that out. We're going to stop at the bridge going into the village because the facilities going through the village are in pretty good shape for the time being. We're going to pick it back up in the future at the intersection of Quarry Hill and Pleasant Valley Road. And from that point, we're going to continue up Quarry Hill within the existing corridor and then drop down to 121 and then continue up to the Grafton Town line. These other two remaining phases of the project are slated to be constructed in 2023.
So is this on the riverbank side or on the land side? 'Cause I know that as you further get out towards Saxon River, there's a whole hillside full of trees that are always a problem. Or I was coming down across the line.
Yeah, so yeah, the plan is to rebuild it in the existing corridor. And the reason for that is we're trying to encourage the communication companies to participate in the project, transfer to the new poles so we can get the old poles out of there. If we relocate the line significantly, past experience tells us communications do not move. So we end up with dual lines along the road.
And you also end up with dual poles because there's one there on the Keesler property that's been broken off for 2 years now from a car accident. And the only thing on it is the telephone and the cable. And frustrates the hell out of me that we can't get them to take those poles out.
Well, if you notice, Franklin and I talked about that. So in his proposal on the first page, there is he added some language in there about removal of the abandoned poles. And that's an important term in terms of the Public Service Commission, because as Franklin stated, Green Mountain can move their facilities, which they've done or will do. And then if the other companies don't follow suit, then the pole can't be removed. So then we have to go to the Public Service Commission and file an action in order to force them. Under law, they're supposed to move within 60 to 90 days.
That's correct.
Now, they haven't, some of these poles have been
They've been in there for several years.
since the Hurricane Irene
Right.
days. So,
And that's not the only section. There's other places in the village and town
there's problems in the village.
unnecessary and nothing, no matter what happens, we try to do, we don't have any luck about getting those things removed. It's ridiculous.
Well, I think the only way we're gonna get any satisfaction, we're gonna have to file a formal complaint with the Public Service Commission.
Good luck with that.
It's a process,
I think it goes through one ear and out the other.
but once those are filed, they do take notice because there are sanctions that the PSC can do that makes the other companies take notice, so.
Yeah, I echo that sentiment, Peter.
I will say one thing, you need to do a little proofreading. You gotta say the installation of a new heaver. I think you mean heavier line instead of a heaver.
I must have not had my glasses on.
the risers and lowers
Yeah.
depending upon the cross line.
Yeah.
I just had noticed that, and I said, I
It's
think
new
they put some eye
technology.
in there.
You hear? Oh, well, good eye.
Okay, anything else? Anybody else have any questions?
Franklin, the only other question was, within the right of way itself, there's discussion, and it's down the road about, we'll have to do some work on this road at some point, and
Mhm.
if be doing survey or any other kind of work, if we could share some of your information, that would be beneficial to us down the road when we're looking to do right of way and reconstruction on that
Yeah.
section of one.
In as far as state archive type information?
Are you doing any survey for the new pole locations,
Well-
or are you just?
It is not survey, it is layout. And I have a hand azimuth. And basically, we're calculating degree angles. It's not what you folks would need to do a
Okay.
asphalt job. But
Okay.
there is, I could just drop this, there is a state plan from 1959 that I could forward you some of the information on.
That'd be great.
Uh,
It'd be a good source document, because we're not ready to start this project yet, but it's on the board's horizon. It's coming up, so we're gonna have to start doing some of this work here in the next couple of years.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's probably
yeah.
gonna widening the road area there, for sidewalk lane, bike lane, et cetera. So, that's why, probably what, a 3 foot, 4 foot lane, probably
We gotta really look
on
at
each
it.
side of the road, so you're looking at 8 foot width there, but it's total reconstruction out there. So it's not one of these where you can just overlay the pavement, it's gotta be torn up and gravel, the base has gotta be done, culverts gotta be put in, et cetera, so.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
It's not just a repave, it's a major
not
reconstruction.
gonna be a cheap project, but it's a couple of years out, so we have time to play with it.
Yeah, most of the construction on this phase of the project is on the south side of 21.
Okay,
So you need a motion to,
so based on this, what we're asking the select board is to authorize this, this application so that he can submit this.
so you wanna sign this, or you want me to sign it? That's either one, duly authorized.
I think we should just have you sign it, just have the board do just a basic authorization, and then we can have Peter sign it.
All right, take a motion to, approve the authorization for GMP for pole relocation on Route 121.
This is just phase one now, make sure you have that on there,
Phase
there will
one.
be more phases to come.
Oh, yes, I know. Wait a
Second
second.
that.
Motion made and seconded to approve the authorization for phase one, expansion of the road line on Route 121. Any further discussion, questions? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor would say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Motion carried.
We'll give Peter a copy, oh, he's got a copy for signature, okay,
Got one right there.
right. In fact, then I'll get you a copy of that, I'll send that off to you, the signed copy.
Okay, Scott, and I'll send you an email with the state project info.
Well, that's great, that'd be very helpful, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next item is the updated galvanizing information on Depot Street Bridge, which was requested. You have a letter in your packet along with some pictures.
So originally there was a link and there was a rather long presentation that really the one slide that I presented to you was part of this whole conversation about duplex coating systems. And I think the engineers wanted to just make sure that the board has some additional information about the specifics about what the impacts might be in terms of how that would impact our decision for galvanizing, and some of the issues about what would be the issues specifically at our location. I think originally this, we've had multiple discussions. It really doesn't give us any additional locations, but I think it's just more background and detail for you in terms of how that decision impacts you going forward in terms of potential costs and other exposures with that project, so.
So it's just the same as what we've been told, actually. This is anything new, is it?
It's a little more it's a little more detailed than some of the previous discussions.
And this is the pedestrian bridge, right, Scott?
It's for both though, right?
Can we split those apart, or do they have to be the same treatment for both bridges?
My understanding from DOT is that they're going to specify just one option on the, because they have to send it out and get it manufactured and get it galvanized, so.
Do you have your packet, Rick?
No, I don't. I'm in Georgia. Didn't get.
The last paragraph there is something about metallizing the vehicular bridge, and the town has decided to only galvanize the pedestrian bridge rather than paint. And then they go on to further describe the difficulties of getting, because of the distance between the girders and the water, trying to get in there to inspect that and repaint, blah, 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 you know, the same issues we've talked about in the past. That's why they're really steering us away from the repaint job or painting it.
So didn't you just say we have to do both bridges the same? Scott, is that what you
So
said?
metallizing is a little different than
It's a
galvanizing.
different process, but it's still not a painting. Is the point.
Right.
For one
Right.
clarification, I would just like to point out, I think that with the vehicular bridge, the two main components of that are the steel girders, which are under the bridge, and then the steel railings, which are the part that's visible. I believe that they could metallize the steel girders, but then the railings are really more of a cosmetic part that's not really part of the the real structure of the bridge. So the difficulty in dealing with those would be a little bit different than the girders. The girders, I mean, it really does make sense to just have them metallized. There really wouldn't be any point in painting them because they're under the bridge. You can't really see them.
Yeah, I think we still don't have the feedback on the style of the railing on the bridge, because I know that the person from the state who was doing that historic, working with the historic commission was out of touch until I think this week. I don't think he's back. So at some point, there'll be a conversation, there'll be a second piece of information will be coming to the board once that's sort of vetted through that process at least. So, and that deals specifically with the railings and the rail design and what options might be available for that.
My other question on the pedestrian bridge, this might be something to ask them, is the real concern that they've raised is accessing the underside of the bridge because of the distance between the water and the girders. But there again, nobody can really see the underside of the bridge. So could we ask them, is there a way to paint just the arches on the sides, but not the underside of the bridge?
And I have a question, Peter.
Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
The pedestrian bridge is going to be lifted on by a crane and built elsewhere. It's going to be, as I understand, I'm speaking with the engineers, so I don't see why they have to both be the exact same thing. They're being manufactured. One is sort of being stick built, as it were, on site. The other one's going to be lifted in as a pre-built unit. So I don't get why we have to do the same thing for both bridges. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, they're not specifically doing the same thing. Metallizing is one process, and galvanizing is another. So it's not doing the same for both bridges. It's just a matter of whether, as Elijah just mentioned, they galvanize the girders underneath the pedestrian bridge. They're going to metallize the girders under the other ones, or perhaps metallize both of the girders that are underneath the bridge. And then the result is whether they're going to paint and what type of railing you're gonna put on the vehicle bridge, which is by the railroad bridge, and then paint the arches on the, pedestrian bridge. But then again, we're still looking at future maintenance down the road, the cost of the maintenance of that, which we have already got a number thrown out there, so.
But that was for maintaining painted stuff all the way underneath. If we're only gonna paint the top of the pedestrian bridge, it wouldn't be such a big deal.
No, we're still
I would suggest you look at this PowerPoint, because after we had our discussion, I found this PowerPoint, and it's in New York, I think, Pennsylvania, I forget, so it's not too far away, it's not like it's down where they don't deal with salt. And there was quite, even within 10, 15 years, there's massive paint chips that they went around and they did some maintenance on. But it was clear to me that painting is not the way to go, particularly because of where we have this bridge. Even if you have to paint the railing, or if you have big paint chips going into the power canal, and I don't know what there are chunks like this that were coming off the bridge.
Really?
According to the photos, whether they all came off at once, I don't know, but that's my worry, is that we are responsible for whatever goes into that canal and goes into that power structure.
Now, was that,
And so I would suggest you look at this PowerPoint, because it went point by point.
Is there a link on that?
I didn't provide the link.
Is that link,
It's in
yeah,
Sue's
Elijah,
original
is that the
email.
link that you had on your Facebook?
Yeah, I didn't send it just to Scott, I
Yeah,
didn't send
it's
it
on
out.
Sue's original email.
Oh, you got it?
can you send it to
I
everybody?
can send it to the board.
And it really made it clear to me that painting is not the way to go.
So was that about this system that they're talking about here? This duplex?
But it's like 28 pages, and then they go from bridge to bridge to bridge, and they discuss the rating and how long, how many years it lasted, and the expense, they had some really high numbers for repayment these bridges.
I know that when I came back from Hanover today, I specifically looked at that bridge coming over the Connecticut, and it looked like it'd been painted. And then the stuff would come off, and it looks like a spotted dog, because it's the color.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's where they painted or filled in the missing chunks. It's darker paint because the other's weathered,
right,
so
yeah.
unless you paint the whole thing, and, it's a matter of expense.
Yeah.
So is that,
I'll send that link to the board.
all right.
I've got a question though for my dumb, so what is the difference between metallizing and galvanizing?
Galvanizing is actually a dipping process.
Yeah.
And I think metallizing is not, it's not a specific coating as much as it is a way that it's manufactured. So that it wears differently.
They explained it to us the first one,
Right.
second time or third time they were here,
Right.
what the difference was.
But
it's-
galvanized steel,
Galvanized.
dip into a,
If you ever watch a car being made, they have this big pool of
Mhm.
galvanized.
Yeah, they
paint.
dip it in there.
They dip it right in.
Well, I mean, that's like a trash can is galvanized, right?
Yeah,
So this bridge would be all silvery like a trash
well,
can?
it will be for 2 years, but the minute
It
starts to.
it doesn't come out, it doesn't look like you're, no, like, I understand what you're saying.
It's just like the.
It doesn't have that
garbage
kind of
you see on
sheen
the
to it.
road, When
Yeah.
they first put them up, they
Yeah.
were nice and shiny, but 2 years later, after they've been snowed on and salted and everything else, they darken out. So you don't notice it as much.
What would happen if you got this galvanized and then you just went out with some black spray paint? Some, you
It
know,
may not adhere, that's the problem. You can't, you can't.
Rust-Oleum maybe?
Well, less water, right, but some metal primer,
Don't give anybody ideas.
the whole nine yards, I mean, you
Well, I
got.
could be out there with some Rust-Oleum paint that thing.
Okay, we'll wait till we get some further information on, that process.
Oh, God.
And like I said, the rails are still to be determined, so
Yeah. All right,
that does not happen.
now let's go on and discuss, organic disposal policy of recycling center and offsite organic materials. This came about because there was complaint about some people not being able to dump material at the stump dump, as they call it, Saxon River,
So,
at the end of Bellevue Avenue. I tried to go out there, but that's the gate, and I wasn't gonna walk in the mud and catch that when I got home, so.
so there's never been a
That
formal,
goes up around the corner.
it goes
That's
away.
Something there, yeah.
And so basically that's a turnaround. So when they plow out there, the guys will go out there in the winter and that's how they turn around and come back through.
I've never been out there. even
It,
when it was open, so.
and I don't know how this has happened because there's no formal board policy that was ever adopted, but apparently there was always this verbal understanding, to leave it at that, that people could, if they were aware of the opportunity, dump organic materials there. And so over time, some people knew about it and did it. I'm not sure everybody knew about it, quite frankly, because it was never a formal facility with hours or procedures or even, relatively, it was just a word of mouth kind of situation. So it had become difficult for us to get it in the winter time to get through there. So our highway guys went in there, cleaned it out and put up a chain to sort of stop it from getting piled up again with debris. And had a few phone calls on the board. Saxon's River Board were inquiring as to the reasons why this is no longer available to folks as a dumping opportunity for materials.
So they can take brush and stuff down to the recycling center. It's free and obviously, this, we've got an area.
Were they putting food and stuff over there?
Well, there was some trash that was getting out there periodically. Unfortunately, if you have an
Yeah,
an
It's out of sight. That's what you can't see
unmonitored
it.
facility, things start to show up,
sure, yeah.
right?
Especially this week.
Yeah.
Now it's gonna be picked up on Saturday.
Yeah, well, that's always the case whenever we have Green Up Day, for sure. But, so it raised some hackles from some folks, and I think they wanted to see what the board's position was, if they thought that there was any way the board would intervene, so we're just bringing it to your attention.
They want us to intervene and say,
Go ahead and do it.
Leave it
go ahead and
open.
do it? I don't think we should do that.
No.
Well, I wanted to bring it to the board's attention, because like I said, there were some people that were fairly
They
annoyed.
made you do that, then you'll end up with tires and everything
Oh,
else.
yeah.
Because out of sight, like I say, down around the corner, you don't see it, so.
The only other thing I think we could do is on our yard materials, our policy says up to 2 inches in diameter for leaves and grasses and small brush. Now, most of the time, the guys are pretty reasonable, they'll take stuff, but, we could even take up to 4 or 5 inches if the board really wanted to, so we could modify that. Anything bigger than that, quite frankly, if somebody's cutting down something bigger than that, they probably should split it and put it in their fireplace over the winter and burn it anyway.
So somebody or something.
So, or
Of
do
course, the other
something.
thing is it becomes stumps, but you can grind those.
And we don't want stumps. Nobody wants stumps. Stumps are the,
So, I mean, that's what they were,
right.
that's where the word stump comes from, that's what they used to.
And is that what they would throw in there, stumps as well, or are they throwing in?
A little bit
And
extra.
Scott said, I think it was one of those things
Right.
that this one knows that one and that one, so, oh, yeah, sure, go ahead and go up there and dump it,
Yeah.
And then the next person says, oh, well, they let me do it, so next thing you know, you got a whole horde of people going in there,
Right.
so we gotta put a stop to that.
I
Otherwise-
mean, imagine like residents within the village, if they have to take down a big tree, it's gonna have a huge stump, they've gotta get a tree company.
Right.
And it's their job to get rid of it.
Right,
It's not gonna fit. So, and anyone else who's like it just goes in my backwoods, if I have enough land.
Right. Or if it's big enough, you season it and burn it at some
Yeah.
point,
Right.
so.
Question, Scott,
Okay.
did the neighbors have have the neighbors expressed any interest in this issue?
Interest in terms of it being an annoyance or interested, I've gotten a couple of phone calls from people that would like to see it stay open. But none of the neighbors have called that have said that it's been an ongoing concern directly, no.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
okay, we all said this, let's move on to the next item, which is the application for use of alcohol on municipal property at Waypoint for the Rotary BFF, I guess that's the Follies or some sort.
Well, it's not a Follies, it's a music festival. I think
Oh.
Betsy can give you some feedback if you're interested. But
All
it's a fundraiser for the Rotary. It's gonna be mostly a family type of an event. They'll have multiple bands and music, a stage. We'll have some food trucks. They will have somebody, kind of like at the Flannel Festival, if you've ever been there, where they have a little beer guy that does beer kind of thing. So we're not looking to recreate Woodstock or to recreate Roots on the River. It's just a smaller, sort of low-key kind of event.
No Woodstock.
There will be people taking slide in the mud. Although maybe it's, I suppose maybe that, you get that kind of notoriety, maybe it become a big deal. Not the sort of thing. They would like a permit for that. for that one.
Okay, there's information is in your packet. So does someone might want to make a motion to
Yeah.
approve or deny?
Yeah, I move that we approve this, application for the Bells Falls Rotary Club and Wild Goose Players. Have an event on June 10th with liquor served, by Donovan's.
Yeah, who's also then doing the event for the alumni the week
But this
after.
doesn't run into the alumni thing.
No, this is the week before, alumni is the week after, they've already coordinated all that, it's all good.
Okay. Do we have a second to the motion?
No, second.
To approve the alcohol use on municipal property at the Waypoint for the Rotary Club and Wild Goose Players on June 10th. Any further discussion, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor would say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. I'll sign my old John Hancock on here. All right. Adoption of committee process 5-year social services. There's the item in your packet.
So we had looked at this once before, and so this is the second time around. The idea here, and I think we're at that 5-year window where we have to do a reevaluation of the rural social services levy. So we looked around and we found that this basically was another community's process and looked like it was fairly substantial and seemed to cover the bases. So shared that with Peter. Peter said, well, why don't you adopt it and we'll bring it to the board. So that's basically what this is. The only thing that he's raised, and it's something that maybe the board want to consider, is I think this community had a minimum of $1,000 for a threshold level for somebody to be considered for a social services levy payment. So I just copied that. And if I remember correctly, with the current listing that we have, I'm not sure there's anybody that gets under $1,000. I could be wrong.
I think there's 3 of them on there. There were
There's only one, Green Mountain RSVP.
Yeah, there were 2, 3 of them.
That's the only one.
There's the one with the crisis center there. $600, something like that.
Was crisis center even listed? I mean, freedom session. No, the only one is one, Green Mountain RSVP.
So that was, and the idea,
That's it's a proving for assistance to old age, for older people. I don't know why they call it RSVP. but
so the way this would work is if you approve this policy, we would put together an ad hoc committee that would go and reach out to the various folks who would be interested in coming in. There would be a process where they would be vetted. And then there would be some feedback through that process about what would be funded or put on for the next social services levy for the next town meeting, so that it would, the board would have a chance, and once the vetting was done through the committee, to look at all of these various outcomes and make a decision prior to it being put on for the full approval at the town meeting.
So where you're stating approved funding requests under 1,000 will be included in the proposed general fund budget. Are we saying that we're vet those or?
That are under 1,000?
Yeah. If we're gonna vet, my opinion, if we're gonna vet one, we should vet them all.
Right, I mean,
I'd rather just stick them into
the last few things that have come to the board that have any kind of social services relationship, they've all been over $1,000, right? The folks that came for the opioid payout money had asked for more than 1,000. I think the discussion you had about the historical society was 1,000. So
I guess maybe the only thing we look at is that if we do that, say they don't have to come to the budget committee, then we cut the amount of people going for over $1,000.
there's an option for that.
Just thinking out loud here.
Sure.
Peter, I got a question. So before we divide up the pie, we have to know how big the pie is. So if there's no limit on this, everyone piles in, makes more, won't the town or someone have to say, we're going to give away $100,000, we're going to give away 80, we're going to give away 60, whatever it is, because otherwise the group prioritizing, all we'll do is say, just add more and more. And I mean, as I envision it. So any thoughts on that?
Well, the only thing is that you have two large entities on there. It's the senior center and the visiting nurses, which come to about $52, $54,000. So it doesn't leave, if you set something maybe $25,000 or $80,000, it doesn't leave much for the, just slim pickings for the rest of them. I mean, you got the bike committee that comes in for $5,000, sub goes in there for $4,000, and I mean, there's quite a slew of, which gets us up to some chunk of money.
Yeah, but how would the process work? And if the impulse would be to simply add more and more, which is what's happened in the past, you just added more and more grants. And so unless there's some kind of a limit, I don't know how the committee would work. Maybe I'm getting this wrong. Anyone else share this concern?
Well, and the numbers have been pretty stable. Of organization, the amount has been increased for the most part, other than I think the Women's Freedom Center. That's the only new one I remember in the last 15 years.
Yeah.
Well, and then the bike committee,
Yeah.
they
And
added.
then you got,
And the historical society.
Well, yeah,
and then there's another one that it's a criminal assistance center that works out of Parks Place.
yeah, but it's still part of Parks Place.
And Main Street Arts wants to make a request as well for their educational programs. So there's Main Street Arts has expressed interest in making requests to support their community education programs.
Well,
Where does it start?
maybe, I don't know what. Maybe this committee should look at applications after we've done our budget. And
Well,
said, okay, we're gonna give this.
You
money.
have to sort of have it done before then, because you put this on your warning for your annual meeting. So the idea would be that we do this work.
You can do it
before.
while you're, the past, we've done it as the budget progressed, and the committee worked along, and
Right,
then at the end, we make our recommendations, say, okay, these are the ones we recommend you do, and the rest of them fend for themselves.
Because the honest answer is if you decide that you go through this vetting process and let's say you decided you're only going to spend $80,000 and you come up with what your awards are, it doesn't stop these organizations from going and asking to be funded through town meeting.
If they get a petition out, you
Correct.
know,
Right.
with the required
So I think-
signatures, then we have to consider it.
The goal here is to give them that, give them that opportunity, the board would have a chance to do the vetting through the committee. The board would get the presentation from the committee. They would then decide do they support it. And once that decision's made, then those organizations still have an opportunity to come, as Peter said, participate in the town and petition beyond for.
right, so the committee could recommend, could pass out, 25 applications,
Sure.
but the select board would be the one to say, well, we can only fund these four. Something like
The
that.
committee's gonna make a recommendation, but the authority still rests with the board. What this does is create a vetting process, so that every one of them don't have to come into one of your meetings.
Mhm.
Because if we had to vet 25 social services organizations, imagine how many hours you need.
Yeah, we get it for hours.
Yeah.
It would be
But we used
weeks.
to do like, 4 or 5 at a
Right.
meeting, and you pretty much.
So all we're doing here is establishing a system for vetting
Right.
and a committee to do so.
I mean, right now, we don't look at their 990s, we don't.
Yeah.
No, we don't look
It's a
at that,
petition to
and
the town.
before, we always just ask the question, how, if they're multi, jurisdictional or multi-regional committee that comes looking for funding, who else is funding you besides just town of Rockingham? And if they're servicing Walpole, Westminster, Putney, et cetera, people, why aren't they contributing too, which would reduce our costs and spread it out a little bit more? So we wouldn't be getting the big hit.
Yeah, but we also don't see their financial statements
No.
to know, what their overall budget is and how much this is contributing to. I mean, I think it's important to contribute to social service agencies because they take a burden off of the town on
Right.
certain things. So it's important to support them, but you want to make sure that, they're a viable organization that has a diverse group of funding
Right.
channels.
Right.
It's not over reliant on
On just one,
our
right.
money.
One pocket, right. Okay, well, we can always refine this if we decide to adopt this and think about that $1,000 thing, so, so if we, want to make a motion to adopt the social services policy?
I just have one question about how would the committee be appointed? How would the members of the committee be chosen and appointed?
Well, it's an ad hoc committee, so it'd be a board decision on how many members do they want it to be on it, how do you want it to be put together, Rick? So as an ad hoc, you guys can do anything you want. It doesn't have to be like a, you know, like the bike ped where you guys had a specific
Formal committee.
formal committee that was ongoing.
In past, I think we had 3 or 4 members that were there, that were on there. We had a couple from the public, and I know there's a board member, because I was on it myself, but, and I can't remember if there was, I don't think there was a village, representative from the village board. So.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have it no larger than 5, just because it's a little cumbersome if you're going
Any
through
more
all
than
this
that, you get
material.
breaks. It's, you know,
Yeah.
it takes too long. Meetings just drag out.
And you could certainly ask people if they're interested in serving, right? We don't have to staff it right away. Once you decide you want to do it, we could put out a request,
Right.
talk to people, see if people in the public might be interested. There might be some folks that maybe would want to be part of that.
Good.
I move that we accept the proposed social services policy.
Let's second that.
All right, motion made and then seconded to adopt the social service policy as presented. All those, any further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor would say aye.
Right.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries, and we'll start the signatures. Okay, let's move on to proposed contract for Rockingham TAP TA 22/12 scoping study, School Street, Atchison Street.
So this has been, so if you guys remember, we had previously authorized Wyndham Regional as our coordinating agent to work with us on this grant that we received. So we're working through Wyndham Regional. They have a portion of this work that has to go through a lot of the field work and some other services that have to be done through a engineer. So they have recommended a contract here with VHB. As you can see, the total contract amount is roughly $49,000. The issue here is we do have a local share as part of this, so that I think the grant award was like 45,000, somewhere in that neighborhood, and I think we have to pay the balance. So it's, at this point, it's more for the board to be aware of, you know, we're gonna be starting this work, and if you approve this agreement, which it would make sense for us, since we're working through a third party to do that, to bring VHB in. And then you can see they have a pretty reasonable schedule here concerning the project itself. They've got a kickoff meeting, they've got all sorts of various milestone dates here, with the idea that they would come back to this board and present in January and have something, and if there was something specific that was potential that the board wanted to then pursue, that was very important, that we would have that at least in front of the board during our budget process, so we'd have the ability to then potentially look at going after other grants for implementation, that type of thing. And then they have a final report by May. But the real point here that I wanted to point out to this board was that, you know, they would do an alternatives presentation in January and have a report for you to take a look at sometime in reasonably close. So that the next phase for these, once you've done these scoping studies, is to go after implementation grants. It's sort of the next logical thing to do. And most of those are an 80-20, so depending upon what the recommendations are, we might have to look at some additional funding to implement what the proposed alternatives that they come with might be, so. And this will be the same basic process that if we're successful getting a grant for the trail extension that we've applied for, we basically follow the same basic process. And then we're working, Betsy's gonna work on this larger potential grant to look at a larger bike, what do they call that today? We sat on a webinar for 2 hours today, so my brain.
Safe streets and roads for all.
Yes. That's, yeah, yes. It used to be the Safe Routes to School, but they've changed the acronym now, so it's Safe Streets and Roads 4 with the letter, with the numeral 4 all, just cute. So that's the new program.
There's no signature here, so you just need a consensus to go ahead with this, or?
So at this point, yes, I just want the board to at least give us just do a general, since it's an appropriation, it was just a resolution to just say, yes, go ahead and work, we will accept the contract and we'll work with the regional representatives on the local share. Since they'll be the ones that will basically be administering this contract, so.
You said it's about 5,000.
I think when it's all said and done, I don't think we're gonna spend the full 49, so.
This is-
So. Go ahead, Rick.
Scott, this is focused on the Atkinson Street, School Street intersection.
Correct.
Right.
And if you remember, we put together a while ago an ad hoc committee of folks that will be working on this. So there's some school representatives, there's representatives from the select board. So, we'll be reporting back as this thing progresses. And then there will be some public meetings to vet what they come up with as we go forward as well.
Okay, so it's a board consensus that we move ahead with this.
Sounds good to me.
Yep.
All right, like you got to go ahead, you need to do a resolution.
Yeah, let's do resolutions. It's an appropriation. It's just easier for the,
Type one up and we'll get it
all
signed.
yeah,
I can come in tomorrow or whatever, sign it. or
okay.
That way you can. All right,
So we need a resolution to say we approve what?
Resolution to adopt the local share.
Local share of the Rockingham
It's,
TAP TA 22 scoping study.
that would be great. Yep.
So I move
you
that.
guys want to authorize me to sign it, so you don't.
They authorize Peter sign.
That's perfect.
Okay. Hey,
Or
let's
second.
go to. Pardon?
Second. and
We should vote since it's an appropriation.
Oh,
I'll
we need to vote?
second it.
Okay, motion made and seconded to get a resolution to approve the contract for the Atkinson Street study. All those in favor would say aye.
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 Myself to sign it. Add that.
Yeah, it's in there.
Okay, all those in favor again, shall we say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Discussion of town meeting participation. I think there's something Bonnie wanted to throw on here.
Yeah, well, have we thought about what we're gonna do? Any ideas or?
Well, I think we're looking at perhaps moving it upstairs to the theater.
Right.
Uh, And
Community outreach, any, do we wanna form a little committee to work on this? A little ad hoc?
I have one suggestion. How about moving it to Saturday? Has that been considered?
Yes.
yeah, we've talked about that in the past, but it's never really got off the ground.
Why not?
Has there been a Saturday? Have they done it?
We've
on
never done
Saturday?
a Saturday, no, but
Okay.
people just used to come in to the, on day before vote.
Well, it's in the evening and it's usually cold still, sometimes.
Well, we've even
it's
discussed moving it to a later time in the year and then like May or something like that, but that didn't fly either, so.
Well, I think a Saturday afternoon might fly. Why didn't it ever get off the ground?
No interest. It's like, it's voter apathy, for lack of a
Yeah,
better
well,
word.
I was more sense that.
Voter apathy is what we're trying to combat
Saturday,
here.
we do it on the Tuesday night which is the traditional night that people would.
Right. They're so used to
You
coming.
hear people who say, oh, if it was on Saturday, would come, but then when if you don't see any other communities who have it on Saturday, for the most part, don't have any more.
Westminster has it on Saturday, doesn't it? Westminster has Saturday.
Yeah, Westminster, but they have it a week ahead of their vote.
Mhm.
And they do a lunch thing and everything else, so I mean,
Right.
I'm not sure if it's potluck, I haven't talked to my
I mean,
contact much down there.
I think
I don't
Bonnie,
think
Bonnie makes a good point, getting people out on a cold night after they've worked a full day versus versus people who are free on more people are free on a Saturday afternoon, and the energy level's greater, and the transportation, you don't have to drive in the dark. I mean, there are a lot of things I think to recommend a Saturday. Maybe we should
Yeah,
research
I
other.
think we should really put it back up on the table. I really do. It's probably easier for some people to deal with childcare on a Saturday, than on a, a weeknight. And,
Just out of curiosity, if you did look at a Saturday, what time would you be thinking? Is this like a 12 o'clock event, a 2 o'clock event, 4 o'clock event?
yeah, I know you have to have your matinee movie. on
No, I mean, it's
Saturday.
just curiosity, just, I don't know what would make more sense for people, honestly.
I think,
10 o'clock in the morning, I really don't know. I mean,
no, I don't think so. I think maybe noon,
Noon,
2.
2.
2?
1:30.
No, I-
1:30, 1:45.
People need to have lunch, right? People need to have lunch, and
Okay, well, 2. It just, if it's a 4-hour meeting, then that gets into dinner time, but hopefully, I don't know. So, I mean, I think we should form some kind of little group to kick around ideas on this. I'll be
yeah,
on it.
I mean, if you could get volunteers, you could do some kind of informal poll down at recycling, and say, or you can even do one online, a Facebook online poll. For
that's a
people.
good idea.
Would you prefer the Tuesday night or the Saturday? And Saturday, what time?
All right.
That's a good idea. You can do that in a warm time of year. You don't have to do it in the middle of winter, but I mean, May or June.
Right. Yeah, why don't we do like a survey monkey kind of thing? And just ask several questions. And, when we were first putting together the town plan, back when I was on the planning commission, before COVID and everything got stuck, we did a survey about the town plan. And we printed up, I think it cost $500 or something like that, little postcards, suggesting that people take the survey and the link onto it, pass them out down at recycling, and have some sitting around in the library and different places. Just to, get all the participation we can.
What was your response?
It wasn't as good as I thought it should be, but I kind of thought it would just be thousands.
As I say, the only thing you're gonna get participation is if there's a controversial issue on the budget.
Well, the response was actually good as these surveys go.
Oh, you're changing your mind again.
Huh?
You're changing your mind.
I mean,
No, I wasn't happy with it, because I thought it would be
But
better.
anyway,
But looking into it, the survey response, it was about, 20% of the cards we put out, which is considered to be good, actually.
No, I was just saying, when we did our, whatever that thing was called before COVID, where the town got together and they picked whatever plan they wanted,
yeah,
there was a lot of people who participated in that. So, I mean, part of it is getting someone, they have to want to participate, and only a handful of people who tend to come. Well, we had what, 70 maybe here,
yeah, it was
75?
70, 75 maybe.
Which was actually a lot more than I anticipated.
Well, we had about that.
But I mean, and that was in
Town
the
meeting.
evening,
Yeah,
that was in
decent
the
number,
evening,
yeah.
so all of those meetings were in the evening. So I mean, yeah, maybe a Saturday would be more beneficial, more people would show up, it'd be good to find out. But I honestly don't think it's gonna make too much of a difference in the turnout.
Well, why don't we propose tonight to do a survey?
Yeah.
Yeah, and work on how to get it done.
I'd be glad to work, Bonnie, I'd be glad to work on that with you if you want anyone else to help you.
That would be great. Well,
And is the idea
Perhaps if
that?
we do a survey, there might be a way to have a field just for comments. So people
Yeah.
could just general comments.
Good
Yeah.
idea. Good idea.
yeah, it would be not just a survey on one question, it would be a survey on,
They would have to rate, like, what would be your first priority, I mean, for the time, your first priority or your first choice would be Tuesday night normal,
right,
Saturday.
Various
and
things like that.
And then, then you're gonna ask, I don't know what other questions you're gonna ask. I mean, what would make you come to town meeting, you know, what?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, do you think it's important to increase attendance at town meeting? Maybe say, how many times have you attended town meeting? So suppose Rick and I put our heads together and come up with some survey ideas and then bring it back to the board.
Yeah.
And we'll think about how we wanna, promote the survey.
All right.
Sound good?
So,
At some point, we just have to involve the schools because they
well, I
are.
was just gonna mention that, you gotta think about the school too, so you're gonna have ours on Saturday, where are they gonna do? Are they gonna have theirs on a different night? I mean, everybody likes to get all the stuff done at
Well,
once.
imagine the warning would be for one meeting, whatever that's gonna be.
Yeah, no,
So, I mean, the last 2 meetings of the school board meeting, what lasted about 15 minutes, I think, by the time they get done. I don't think it was very long after we got done with ours.
Nope, it was fast.
Yeah, it was fast. Okay,
Okay,
all right.
you guys have a job. Wait, but you don't got to that, get back to us on the 16th, or you wanna wait till June?
I get back on the 8th, Bonnie. I can work with you next week on it. What do you want? You want to do by the 16th? You want to take more time?
No, let's do it by the 16th. Where are you?
I'm in Georgia.
Oh. He is a traveling man.
It is. You can't
Close
keep
to,
that
close
in
to
half.
St. Simon's Island, where I will tell you, I hate to say this, but the weather is gorgeous.
Oh,
Stop it.
shut up.
It's cold around. I wanna hear that.
It's been
You're in
raining.
the
I
sunshine.
know,
here,
I
too.
know, I know.
We don't wanna have you try to.
Is that the sun out your window? Cause we haven't seen that thing for a while.
Yeah.
Whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
Pay the electric.
Only in the 70s.
Okay, so let's go down to financials. Any questions?
I got a list online, so if there's any particulars here.
I didn't see too much here when I ran through this thing. Page 2 of 12. General fund. Fire department charges, we had $12,600. Was that the burn permits? Anybody know? It's in revenue.
No, that has not been paid that I'm aware of.
Where did 12,600 come from? Anybody know? I mean, it's nice that we got it, but kind of nice to know where it came from, so it's fire department charges, that's why I just assumed there was.
sometimes it's accidents on the highway.
Yeah.
But I mean,
But I don't know.
that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, the lump sum for the other, that fairly large burn. has
Yeah, I
not
know
been
that,
paid.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure this was an accident on the highway. There was a serious accident on the highway.
I just seem for a large number of one event, but that's what I just wanted.
Well, it was I think that's what they told us the last time, that there was some major 91 incident
I think they use
with the,
some sort of foam or materials or
Yeah.
something, because that's what I think.
and it was, like it was a company that, a big trucking company or something.
Right.
Can't remember, but
Still a little concerned about this transfer station permits, access permits, we're running way behind on those. I don't know why that's happening, but. I'm all tapped off here, so just figuring out. Almost to the end here, 204 under the highway department. We got 2 items here, Alyssa. Maybe just wait for one to wear off, but they both have funds on them. One, it's a Depot Street Bridge. One is 5800 6001 and the other is 6003. Why do we have 2? One's got $1,400 in it, almost 15, and the other's got 64.5 in it. $4,500. I just wonder why we have 2 accounts instead of just one. There's only one bridge. Hello? Are you with us? Hello?
Alyssa, maybe she's not on her, she's,
She's there, maybe she's,
yeah, did we lose her? Could be.
That's not a big issue.
I'll check into it,
We'll
'cause-
look into it.
yeah,
Other than that, I think we're coming up fine as far as road.
Well, her audio, she just texted me, she said her audio is not working.
Oh,
Okay,
I'll see you tomorrow.
we'll follow up on the
I'll give you
budget.
fair warning so you can run high, but I'm not telling you what time I'm coming. Anyone else have any questions? Hey, let's go down and review approval for orders, bills, and warrants. I've seen none in front of me. Let's get some line over there, Scott.
I did not bring any down.
All right, we'll take care of it next time.
Yep.
Agenda items for May 16th, 2023 meeting, that's a couple weeks away.
We'll have a health officer appointment,
Oh, yeah, we got, and then, Dougie McPhee wants to be on the walk.
and we have a white
Yeah.
light appointment for,
So, we'll get, I've already emailed, Dougie that we appointed him on the 16th, so he's aware.
we're also gonna do an update on some of the issues on the train station for the board, so there'll be an update on that. Gary's been working on a couple of things, so we want to bring the board up to speed on what's happening there. So we'll have that as well. Those are the only ones I can think of off the top of my head. I think there's a couple of others I can't.
And Rick and I are gonna bring you.
Oh, an update on the proposed survey.
I've got a question for you, Scott. Can you have a sec?
Yep.
The funding for the fire study, we, at the last meeting, we spoke that we were going to, if the Department of Agriculture grant doesn't come through, we were gonna use town money to get that
Right.
ruling. Is that something that we need to vote on? How will that proceed?
Yeah, we'll have to do a separate, I'm sorry, go ahead, Peter.
Go ahead. I think I was gonna say something to you, but.
We would have to do an appropriation for that.
So do we want to do that?
I think we should, you and I both agree that if we don't get it started, we're never gonna get there, so. And it's, we should have it before we decide to keep spending money on equipment. Especially if it comes out, we don't need to be spending that kind of money.
Yeah, I think that the consultancy cost would be minimal compared to, when you're talking $1 million fire trucks, it'd be really good for us to have some information on how our resources are deployed compared to other communities and so on. So I think the study would be a great investment.
So we haven't got it on the agenda for any action tonight, but we
We
put
can
it
add it
on
for
to
the
the 16th
Yeah,
and appropriate it at that point.
All right.
Is that all right?
Good, thanks.
I'll give them one last effort, USDA, you know,
Yeah, he's been
they're,
waiting, trying to get, but they're not moving off the dime, so I think.
they just don't commit to giving you any kind of indication as to when they're gonna give you an answer. It's really,
Fine.
I know the Saxon River Board is interested, they're very interested in this issue too.
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
so. Okay, anybody else? No? Hey, review agenda items for the joint board, there's, we got a few on there already, it's tax sale policy and
Right.
discussion, et cetera, et cetera.
We also talked about, if we're gonna talk about policing. I think
Right.
that was one of the things
It's on there.
we had wanted to, discuss.
It wouldn't be a bad idea if you just gave them the update you did with us tonight about the EMS stuff. I'm not sure if they're.
Yeah, we can give a depth.
I'm sure the village may be aware of it, but I'm not sure if the Saxon River is, although they have rescue out there, but they can't transport, so.
And then Goodwood wanted to do an update, so.
Anybody else got anything?
I think we want to talk a little bit about sidewalks, didn't we?
Oh, right.
At the joint board or at the, we certainly could.
Oh, I think there was some mention of that, wasn't there? I think the village was interested in talking with us about it.
Yeah, and I think Saxon River is interested too. So yeah, the sidewalks would be a good point to discuss. And the walk bike committee also is very interested in sidewalks.
Okay, so we're gonna have a discussion on sidewalks then? I mean, there's money out there. I've already informed Saxon River at their village meeting that there's money once that came up, because they wanted to take the sidewalks back. They used to do 100 feet of sidewalk a year, but you know how that is. By the time you get 2 or 3 years done, you gotta go back and start doing the other ones all over again, so you never gain anything.
Yep.
So, and we've done some fairly decent work out in Saxon River on their sidewalks. There's some that need some other attention, but you know, we'll work on that as time and availability of contractors to do the work are available. That's what we've been having issues with, so.
Right.
Okay, let's move on to other business. Brett, you have anything?
Nothing.
Elijah, anything?
Nope.
Fine,
Nope.
Phil?
No, just a question of where's the speed sign gonna be going now that we're out of snow? I know that.
We don't have a
Rockaway
first
Hills,
location yet, so
Parker Hill, or
if you want, Parker Hill is asked.
I talked to people on both, Rockaway's, well, all of them actually.
Everybody.
Cambridgeport Road is another one,
All right,
but I mean, it would be good to get some kind of
we can start working on the schedule.
schedule.
I think we should keep that sign out all the time, just going around to different areas,
Exactly.
use it.
It was interesting reading the Saxon River minutes that they don't think those signs are very effective. I know that at tonight's scheduled meeting, they had it on there to discuss speeding out in Saxon River. And I know Westminster town meeting minutes were the same thing, they're complaining about their speeding issue down there,
Well, they're not necessarily effective, but we need to start getting the data for the sheriffs.
right.
We need to know where the hours and the areas that are.
Oh, yeah, I'm not across the them out there, right? But just that, okay, just to remind everybody, taxes are due May 10th, and if you don't pay, the 8% penalty kicks in, so save yourself some money. Also, Scott, reading in the Westminster minutes that they're gonna have us go down and paint some sidewalk or some school sign stuff down there. Are we charging them for that, or are they gonna do it free?
Charging Westminster for where? Down near the high school, Peter?
No, down at their school in Westminster on School Street. It was in their minutes.
I don't remember.
And they talked to either you or the village, they actually said the village, but the village does good paint. Town does. Why would we be going down there painting their side? I mean, they should paint their own, but not, I don't
I'm not
know.
aware of that discussion.
Well, it was in their minutes, during the last.
I'll have to read their last
yeah.
minutes. News them.
And I guess Mr. Perry is gonna talk to you about policing too, because as I mentioned, the speeding issues.
Right. Well,
So, yeah.
we'll invite them to our tri-board meeting. I've gone out there, you and I have gone out there before. so-
Yeah, I know. Well, look at the night you went out there and you never got.
That's sad. Yeah, so we'll invite them here.
That's till 8 o'clock, never got in. Even the executive session.
Yeah.
and 2 hours sitting around twiddling your thumb,
Yeah,
and finally just left. So there is a need for executive session, I believe
Yes.
you mentioned.
yes, there is.
So what do we,
It relates to, so it relates to contracts, Peter,
okay,
so,
so.
and I'm the only person that has to be here.
Before we go there, I would like to send out a thanks to the union negotiating committee, it consisted of myself, Scott, Alyssa, Heather, and Debbie Wright. We are tentatively successful at this point, just waiting for
Oh, good.
ratification, so that's one thing off our head. And Scott kept us on the straight and narrow, so much of his grin, we kind of drove him nuts a couple of times.
Worked out.
Good, good.
Nobody came and blows.
Yeah, we didn't have to beat anybody up.
Right, we actually had pizza one day, little
Yeah.
pizza party.
We had to do the contract, you said.
Yes. So you have to do the two resolutions.
Two motions.
Right.
All right, first motion is I move to find that premature journal of public knowledge of contracts will clearly place the municipality at a substantial disadvantage by foregoing our strategy, negotiating strategy. Do we hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
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 Are we supposed to be in executive session?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
We're still doing the reasons.
Oh, the reasons
Right.
for it, okay.
Yes.
Second motion is I move that the board enter executive session, to discuss contract negotiations with, I don't know who it is, so we can't state the company, perhaps, or not, but we don't, under provision of Title I, Sections 313 of the Vermont statutes. Do we hear a second? Motion made and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
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 Into executive session.
This meeting was recorded by Falls Area Community Television, located at 1 Hospital Court, Bellows Falls, Vermont. If you would like a copy of the meeting, our phone number is 802-463-1613, or email us at fact810@gmail.com. Falls Area Community TV, keeping government honest.